Story number 14. Dream of making. Setting. Fantasy, Dynasty, Warlands. Realms, times 14. Planet Neva. Rebirthed 14 times. Species, humans. Characters, 120. Seasons, 1. Summary. In a land of imagination. Brought to war by the Tyrannical Spirit abusing his powers against the unknowing. Over time, warriors have stepped up and defied their own power limits to become guides to achieve world peace. After changing the world so many times, brief centuries always ends up with the Tyrannical Spirit recreating world war. Synosis, Reve, Xifui Nu, Tweet, Milian, Carolina, and Bombaiza. They are the 7 nations of this world, of this version of their earth. The leaders are on top. They're in their leading war council in the order they see fit. Some have one right hand, some have multiple. But all in all, these are the men and women that stepped up to fight against the Tyrannical Spirit. He's back to prove that humans will never live perfect lives of light. Bringing out the utter darkness of humanity has always been his drive. He turns the world upside down by getting the preceding council under his wings, manipulating ways of life to infiltrate all of world peace. Almost got what he wanted. His work will be in jeopardy once the next heroes step up to the plate to calm the sudden coup detat. He's the end. Chronic and his legion will pull ultimate strings to destroy humanity again. History. First World. Chronic. Year 0 to 1183. 3 continents. Second World. Vergès. Year 1184 to 1294. 3 continents. Third World. Hazun Bazaki and Zatuoshi. Year 1295 to 1402. 4 continents. Fourth World. Ioceres and Zavantal. Year 1403 to 1612. 4 continents. Fifth World. We're Hungary. Year 1672 to 1681. 3 continents. Sixth World. Ravenel and Gemetto, year 1682 to 1699, 3 continents. Seventh World, Ladies of the Relief Mansion, year 1700 to 1800, 3 continents. Eighth World, Zigmonto and Javantra, year 1801 to 1962, 5 continents. Ninth World, 2 sets of triplets, year 1962 to 2215, 5 continents. 10th World, Musambo, year 2216 to 2371, 4 continents. 11th World, Harv McEasy and Vitamin Creation, year 2372 to 2415, 4 continents. 12th World, Exal's Great and Vulnerable Boss, year 2416 to 2477, 4 continents. 13th World, Vondo Prism and Olarimia, year 2478 to 2500, 4 continents. 14th World, Terradome, year 2501 to 2941, 1 continent. Current world is over a giant continent with a small continent at the center of it, surrounded by a giant pond that's considered a sea. This small continent is where the legends reside. Like all of the previous worlds, they live amongst humanity to catch the Tyrannical Spirit. Scrolls have told humanity, if the Tyrannical Spirit re-emerges, take the coveted scrolls of each nation to read out the 7-line poem, to unlock the center continent so that the legends can put down the Tyrannical Spirit again. With the coup d'etat he unleashes, the nations will no longer trust each other, making it a trial of complete errors for the only legend that is amongst the people. Trying to get them to unlock the center continent for peace will be the complete opposite of peace. The poem goes like, if you can look into your mind, if you can look into your heart, if you can see yourself, you can honestly say and feel, you're mine on a serious level, 'cause I'm yours on a more serious level. Then this land is mine. Bombaiza Nation. Bombaiza is a nation ran by the House of Kerns. They were appointed as the holy blood family of the nation in year 2577. Given its grace by the legend, Exal's Great. It's the nation of explosions. It can be seen across their flags and sigils. Architecture, style, culture, of vapor. During the coup d'etat, Chronic had the king and queen slain, as well as several of their warlords. Reve accepted a rushed coronation. With the entire previous generation being wiped out, Reve seated the round table with majority of the people she grew up with. They were able to survive the original onslaught that was taking place across the entire planet. It touched everyone's round table, inner circle, foreign diplomats, and anyone in a world leader position. With the coup detrimentally affecting all nations, Bombaiza was one of the first nations sparking war on other nations to secure the 7 lines of the poem. Moving on to the warlords. Breathe, superpower of ancient astronomy. Weapon of choice, spirit fingers. Mr. Don't Play, Paraxo Mimic, and Paraxo is the crystal of rainbow. Weapon of choice, twin Adachis. Kilomeza, superpowers of fire and shadow. Weapon of choice is an arm cannon. Raralicious, superpower is culinary, weapon of choice is a whipping sword. Roy McSona, superpower, Ioben of astronomy, weapon of choice, twin wheels. Larumi, superpower is psychic, weapon of choice is twin Trishulus. Venthelgo, superpower is earth, weapon of choice is a drill lance. Mirthin, superpower is hexenry, with the categories of portal, weather, time, and explosion. Weapon of choice is a halberd. Halege, superpower is Hells, Cerberus, weapon of choice is a barbarian whipping sword. And Dibella, superpower is vegetation, weapon of choice is spear. P.S. My cousin, Portia, inspired this entire group. They weren't created when the story was originally made. She originally belonged to the lineup of Reve Nation, but I changed it because I felt like the story needed more nations. Carolina and Bombaiza nations were created at the same time, to decrease the amount of group members to 10. Carolina Nation. Carolina is a nation ran by a democracy. Even though it was graced by the legend, Olarimia, it's a nation of magic. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of blue. During the coup d'etat, the Tyrannical Spirit had the round table, inner circle, foreign diplomats and anyone in a world leader position slain. Regardless of all the leadership being dismantled, Miraculous doesn't believe in shedding blood. He acts as the main leader who was voted into leadership of the 10 provinces. Others, not so much, but because they respect him, they support his leadership. Because he respects them, he wants them all to tune into their bloodlust capabilities, making Carolina Nation a foe to not fuck with. The two sets of twin sisters know nothing other than surviving by any means necessary. They have their prophecies matching their bloodlust. Humongo, Xifui, Howie Diesel, and Old Destroyer are exact definitions of warlords, spent their entire lives staying mighty just in case their existence would be blessed by the Tyrannical Spirit. Moving on to the warlords. Miraculous, superpower is magistry. Categories are dream, life, veggies, and minotaur. Weapon of choice is a drill lance. Humongo, superpower is tightness. Weapon of choice is a barbarian whipping sword. Malprave, superpower is death orbital. Weapon of choice is armed cannon. Kill whatever, superpower is life orbital. Weapon of choice, armed cannon. Xifui, superpower is afterlife. Weapon of choice is double sword. Howie Diesel, superpower is culinary. Weapon of choice, barbarian club. Old Destroyer, superpower is heaven's scorpion. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. Oroville, superpower is magic carpet crystallization. Weapon of choice, twin yo-yos. Voxville, superpower is magic carpet crystallization. Weapon of choice, twin yo-yos. In Silencia, superpower is weather. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. P.S. When assigning names for the nations, I kept in mind how fictional I wanted this fantasy world to be. My grandmother, Carolyn, with her being the inspiration behind the first legend and the entire story, it was only right that I included a nation named after her. And yes, blue is one of my favorite colors. Milian Nation. Milian is a nation ran by the House of Flores. They were appointed as the Holy Blood family of the nation in year 2566, given its grace by the legend. Choice is the nation of wine. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of black. This nation has been ran by women majority of its existence, cause we all know that men are trash and the Tyrannical Spirit is a man. To keep it a stack, they kept men at weapons distance. Men rarely held any diplomatic or actual power across this nation until the coup d'etat. The Tyrannical Spirit really worked his evil magic to get the women in power slain. The manipulation of it all was apocalyptic. The only women in power that survived were the Queen, Wildy, and XOV. Moving on to the warlords. Scorches, superpower of electric butterfly of fire. Weapon of choice is a hairpin. Wildy, superpower is hydro ankylosaur. Weapon of choice is twin katanas. XOV, superpower is matism death. Form, Gundam. Weapon of choice, twin Trishulus. The franchise, superpower of rainbow. Weapon of choice, rapier. Venazi, superpower of psychic. Weapon of choice, halberd. Roxune Phagos, superpower is imagination. Categories of fire, earth, wind, and dark. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. Jesus, superpower is imagination. Categories of ice, vegetation, water, and light. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. Bait Zold, superpower of smoky wasp. Weapon of choice, blade chain. Crucilio, superpower is tightness. Weapon of choice, barbarian whipping sword. And exemplary, superpower X. Weapon of choice, armed cannon. P.S. Back then, I was huge on Christina Milian. Definitely had to make a character based off of her. From AM to PM, all I think about are the ladies, so give it up for the ladies. I plan on having Milian Nation be portrayed as the hottest and most regal nation, especially with all of her #1 ladies being executed by the Tyrannical Spirit. Expect nothing but surface of the sun move sets from them when it's time to. Tweet Nation. Tweet is a nation ran by the House of Keys that were appointed as the Holy Blood family of the nation in the year 2600. Given its grace by the legend, Vitamin Creation. It's the nation of wings. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of silver. They dealt with the biggest disaster of them all, the Tyrannical Spirit, directly. To the point, he's the father of Tuan. To friend, to lust, to love, to protect. Such a heinous man is something the queen had to get over quickly. No telling how detrimental it is to go through that process and live to see another day, versus being a queen who fell for such deceit, who now needs to rule after such deceit. No matter her being a phoenix welder, there's no true way to rise from the ashes after being played by the world's biggest bane of existence. Moving on to the warlords. Tweet, superpower of life phoenix, weapon of choice, scimitar. Tuan, superpower is life phoenix, weapon of choice, scimitar. Ultraworth, superpower is heaven's dove, weapon of choice, double sword. Ninjiet, superpower, the golden dragon, weapon of choice, twin katanas. Hollywood Hearts, superpower, Matism, Ray, form, Gundam, weapon of choice, Nodachi. The Sauce, superpower, culinary, weapon of choice, spear. Alzona, superpower X, weapon of choice, whipping sword. J.O. Kyanga, superpower, explosion panda, weapon of choice, armed cannon. Painsboro, superpower, vegetation eagle, weapon of choice, armed cannon. And Ricky Mason, superpower, Matism Ray, form, dragon, weapon of choice, twin claws. P.S. Tweet Nation was one of the original 5 nations made for this story. Tweet, Christina Christian of American Idol, a black Victoria's Secret model. Lucy Liu and somebody else inspired a lot of characters for this group, as well as somebody I met in basic training of the army. It was only right that I kept it as a staple of life for this story, which is why a lot of the characters have transformative superpowers. But ever since I copped Tweet's Southern Hummingbird album, it was a sweet old countdown before she was immortalized in the Tri-Stone era. Xifui Nu Nation. Xifui Nu is a nation ran by the House of Dynasty that were appointed as the Holy Blood family of the nation in year 2572. Given its grace by the legend, Zigmanto, it's the nation of stars. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of gold. Previous king and queen just handed over the reins of the lands to their youngest son, whom happened to be the only one that survived the Tyrannical Spirit's onslaught of a coup d'etat. They chose right, with survival of the fittest being embedded in his motherfucking brain. He was not going to let Xifui Nu fall, had to bury several people who were once deemed as the highest of high. This left a bad taste in the new leadership's mouths, as they had to create new ways of proving loyalty before the latest world war popped off. Moving on to the warlords. Glory of Isak, superpower Shadow Octopus, weapon of choice, Barbarian X. Khan True, superpower Hell, weapon of choice, Double Sword. Miss Only, superpower Heaven, weapon of choice, Twin Yo-Yos. Zal Soray, superpower Crystallization Ray, categories Diamond, Meha, and Ruby, weapon of choice, Whipping Sword. Zizuka, superpower Sword of the Universe, weapon of choice, Twin Swords. Kray Asode, superpower, Magma Serpent, weapon of choice, Rapier. Lawyer the Great, superpower Pollution Serpent, weapon of choice, Barbarian Sword. Zorahan, superpowers Monsters Morph, weapon of choice, Barbarian Whipping Sword. Rob Turtles, superpower Turtlesaurus Rex, X, and Turtlesaurus Rex will be something like Bowser and his kids, weapon of choice, Armed Cannon. Degree Vic, superpower is Sorcery, categories of Fire, Tiger, Earth, and Manipulation, weapon of choice, Twin Nodachis. P.S. There were a lot of inspirational dames for this group. One happened to be just a girl in my class in high school, beautiful child of the universe, a black girl holding so much inspiration. Others were celebrities of that time period. Mali Misahan of Eden's Crush, Nicole Fasella and Jessica Zor of Gossip Girl, and Mariah Carey had a great time girl grouping for this group. They'll be the first girl group of this story. The second belongs to the House of Relief Ladies. Reve Nation. Reve is a nation ran by the House of Coup. They were appointed as the Holy Blood family of the nation in year 2586, given its grace by the legend, some other food item, aka Sophie. It's the nation of fire. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of red. The House of Coup has been lost. No matter how hard they fought, the entire bloodline was successfully taken out. The Tyrannical Spirit knew what he was doing, knew how to manipulate the nation of fire. It was blitz after blitz of deception that forced all of the leaders to question even their own existence. Reve, burned in flames those days, didn't stop them from anticipating a world war. They set out to right wrongs, regardless if they were right or not. With no more blood to protect, there's going to be snow everywhere. Moving on to the warlords. Snowed, superpower is sorcery. Categories are weather, speed, mirror, and fire. Weapon of choice, whipping sword. Royalty, superpower is poi poi. FYI, poi poi is 17 superpowers in one. There's a whole story about it. Story number 5, Ralph we trust. Weapon of choice, spirit fingers. Expressions, superpower is poi poi. Weapon of choice, spirit fingers. Peace grizzle, superpower is psychic polar bear. Weapon of choice, double sword. Prancer, superpower is reindeer of time. Weapon of choice, hairpin. Coolix, superpower is ice cobra. Weapon of choice, twin claws. Miss Oblivion, superpower is pollution anglerfish. Weapon of choice, twin yo-yos. Chartishan, superpower is raptor light. Weapon of choice, barbarian X. Skied, superpower is zenith. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. Inverse Lacos, superpower is imagination. Categories are prison, electricity, fire, and wings. Weapon of choice is a drill lance. P.S. My cousins, Shay and Keys, inspired this group. I put 3 cousins on the initial team. After dwindling it down, I just kept the 2 that were sisters to this team. Made them highly coveted warlords of the group. Prancer was based off of my favorite flavor of love contestant. Miss Oblivion was based off of a classmate, and later in life, Sky was changed out to be based off of one of my favorite Mabinaki players. Synosis Nation. Synosis was a nation ran by the House of Forever Row. They were appointed as the Holy Blood family of the nation in year 2571, given its grace by the legend, sacrifice. It's the nation of wind. It can be seen across their flags and sigils, architecture, style, culture of green. The House of Forever Row has been forever lost. Kamikazes were best served down so many leaders' throats. Synosis Nation was the only nation that lost their entire round table. Because they put so much stake into it, their downfall was easy. All of them together died together with very little survivors. 40 killers will be appointed as their new sovereign. We'll take it with a gulp. We'll have to search high and low for the new lords, but the nation of wind makes it very easy to get around. They'll just have to be faster than a former world union to ensure their continued existence. Moving on to the warlords. 40 killers. Superpower is astronomy behemoth. Weapon of choice, twin katanas. Domega ult. Superpower is griffin of time. Weapon of choice, barbarian sword. Vesega. Superpower is water. Weapon of choice, spear. Ilamon. Superpower is psychic. Weapon of choice, spirit fingers. Remedos. Superpower is sound. Weapon of choice, halberd. A beautiful truth. Superpower is weather. Weapon of choice, hairpin. Foxel. Superpower is hexenry. Categories are skull, manipulation, enchant, and Tyrannosaurus Rex. Weapon of choice, morph spear. So sweet. Superpower is vegetation. Weapon of choice, blade chain. Head buster. Superpower is earth. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. And Ray Fanto. Superpower is fire and currency. Weapon of choice, twin katanas. P.S. Around this time, I was big on Talim of Soul Calibur, which is why I make an appearance in this group. It was also around that time when someone said Naomi is Amon backwards. Also around the time I set out to make a female serial killer character. And definitely around the time I fell in love with the idea of pirates. Last definitely, all my life, even before high school, I would dream about flying on a weekly basis. This group was definitely a homage to that. Chronix Legion. Like all gods, they are created in origin universes from beings that are too old to care, so they create, just making all kinds of creations, then setting them free. It took a long time before this god decided to make this universe vastly beautiful to the point that no matter what time of the day you look up into the sky, you can see the universe all around. Such beautiful things are painted in the sky, and it never looks the same. Just one of the tools he decided to install, so that the beings he creates would always have a false sense of hope. All he wants is to create disdain pain, to create challenge, to bathe in blood, to bathe in war. Violence is a hell of a drug in the wrong hands, and his couldn't be more covered with blood. For eons, it seemed that all mankind knew was the war to survive. It's insane how they would procreate, establish, travel, to be filled with bias, loathing, and hate. Every now and then, he'd come across a super being that was so super, his eyebrows wouldn't come down for days. Completely surprised by his own creations turned them into personal slaves of war for the sole creation of loathing. There's nothing quite like an overpowered super being doing whatever they want. That would be the true definition of freedom if they weren't immortalized and sired to him. His only weakness, when someone says, fuck no, that challenge alone is the threshold of life for this universe. You would know if he were in your audience. He's very proud of his existence, but if you can survive his godly onslaughts, you'll walk away with his world. Until the next time, onward to his super beings he'll be using for this generation. Chronic, superpower is all. Categories, Hydra and Dark versus Light. Weapon of choice, Halberd. Akiro, superpower is explosion. Weapon of choice, whipping sword. Zalman, superpower is psychic swordfish. Weapon of choice, barbarian sword. Soul Karina, superpower is light. Weapon of choice, blade chain. Gualeo, superpower is hell. Weapon of choice, twin katanas. Azanero, superpower is astronomy. Weapon of choice, double sword. Ozomeg, superpower is sorcery. Categories are earth, light, wind, and paint. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. Diamond dish, superpower is diamond triceratops. Weapon of choice, spirit fingers. The secret, superpower magistry. Categories are sound, dark, shadow, and serpent. Weapon of choice, hairpin. 28 whistles, superpower is hexenry. Categories are sound, time, wings, and wind. Weapon of choice, spear. And 83rd lord, superpower is electrified Aoben, and that's the wolf with wings. Weapon of choice, gauntlets. P.S. He is the type of nigga that'll have you smoking weed in your matte black truck in front of your father's place, and that's a homage to Tweets smoking cigarettes. So tyrannical with it that his pets all live in a magical fortress that he can move at any given time. It's always somewhere out there, just a giant cylinder of a fortress that cannot be missed in most terrains. His collection of warlords will have you shitting bricks, all because these 10 were the main 10 that developed the latest world war. All of them were responsible for the death of so many leaders, so much death that couldn't be reversed, no matter the resurrection specialist. Everyone that died in a world coup d'etat cannot return. None of Tweet's life powers or Phoenix feathers would reverse death either. Until the next generation of humanity, they'll be sitting beautiful or handsome in their quarters, having all of the richest recipes, getting all the tender love and care, just no free will to come and go. Legends. For those that conjure up enough strength, enough magical might, enough luck, will be given the Tyrannical Spirit's godness. Millions of lives he has claimed, except for the 39 legends of this world. When they felt the fuck no coming on, they just kept going on to the next sword, on to the next strategy, on to the next war, on to the next victory, on to a higher, oh my goodness. They fought so hard against human nature to ideally force humans to choose peace over hatred. That's how they created the ceremony of rebirth, taking away everything they used to know so they can simply not reclaim it. Started chain reaction after chain reaction of ultimate peace crusaders. Even though the number is small, the way they love thyself, the way they love everyone else, couldn't survive if they weren't overpowered catalysts of everything and anything. Legends 13th Terror Dome consists of 6 oh my goodness warriors that wanted to prove those that are not bound by blood can still carry humanity to splendid heights. Proverbial walks of life came to one conclusion of fuck no that has laid the Tyrannical Spirit down for 440 years, all because human unity. It took him 440 years to finally break that. Terror Dome are horror flicks, superpower is mirror, weapon of choice gauntlets. Kenji, superpower is astronomy, weapon of choice spirit fingers. Eagles, superpower is pollution ray. Weapon of choice, barbarian X. Pebbles, orbital rainbow is a superpower. Weapon of choice, twin yo-yos. Under raft, superpower is afterlife dragon. Weapon of choice, twin odachis. Most important lady, superpower is ice. Weapon of choice, twin trishulus. Legends 12. Vondo Prism and Olarimia are 2 bards of mages. Coven, Sheets and me developed these 2 orphans to be 2 cures for humanity. Their gift of music made it easier for preceding legends to take a a load off, way before they were even crowned legends. The Tyrannical Spirit didn't like them because of their ability to huddle the masses. Having so many humans in one place, all on the same accord, was a huge fuck no. Huge. It was one of the few times his magical fortress with the occupants couldn't do anything. Vundo Prism, superpower is Magistry. Categories of sound, piano, light, and glyph. Weapon of choice, Barbarian Club. Oloremia, superpower is Magistry. Categories, sound, violin, dark, and mirror. Weapon of choice, hairpin. Legends 11th, Exal's great and vulnerable boss. Grow up as mercenary orphans, knowing that if you can help, somebody will help you. They may have been unfortunate with no roadmap of a family through life. They filled in the gaps by simply being powerful. Grew up slashing down dark lords around the worlds, and majority of them were actual monsters. Doing that too many times eventually landed them with a run-in with the Tyrannical Spirit that turned into almost turning two great allies of all populations to mortal enemies. Not falling for the deceit turned them into lovers. The ability to manhandle anything turned them into legends. Exal's great. Superpower is sorcery. Categories are earth, explosion, dark, and magnetism. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. Vulnerable boss. Superpower is sorcery. Categories are poison, enchant, water, and weather. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. Legends 10th. Harv McEasy and Vitamin Creation lived crazy lives of almost being children of the Tyrannical Spirit. All they wanted was an easy 100 years of living. Acquired it before the proverbial legal age. One is a natural incubus, one is a natural succubus. They were the keys that opened every door and every chest. Abuse, 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 yet still took care of everyone around them. But this abuse, abuse, abuse was a bigger key that made them worlds more powerful than any other super being at that time. When the corruption came around, they sent it packing like it was first nature. Harv McEasy, superpower is vegetation and earth. Weapon of choice, barbarian sword. Vitamin Creation, superpower is imagination. Categories of fear, ray, whatchamacallit, and zenith. Weapon of choice, whipping sword. Legends 9th, Musumbo and Yudochi are a very odd pair. A man willing to do anything to stay on top. A woman who only needed herself, trying his damnness his entire life to not fall to the prey of mortal needs. Went out of his body the second he saw her. Love at first sight has been almost nothing in this world because of how maddening the Tyrannical Spirit has made it. But it was his fuck no that single-handedly changed his mind. Being hardcore has its fruits, veggies, rolls, gravy, entrees, and dessert, but not when everyone around you participates out of fear instead of respect. Once Yudochi taught him to stop being the Lubu of this world, it was the first time the Tyrannical Spirit lost a super being pet. Musumbo, superpower is Psychic Moose. Weapon of choice, double sword. Yudochi, superpower is wind. Weapon of choice, hairpin. Legends 8th, two sets of triplets, consists of two pairs of double power genes. Gone horrifically right. For a total of 200 years, the Tyrannical Spirit had Zigmonto and Jovantra's reign obsolete, until Zigmonto put some spells to maximum output. With them being crowned legends at that time, they could fix weapons of mass creation and destruction unlike any other legends. Jovantra blessed the oceans with magical sharks, and if you've never met one with a jetpack, you're lucky. The Tyrannical Spirit wasn't, cause every puzzling creation Z and J created multiplied humanity's luck like no other generation. XOG, superpower is Matism Death. Weapon of choice, armed cannon. Yale, superpower is Matism Water. Weapon of choice, armed cannon. ZUJ, superpower is Matism Psychic. Weapon of choice, armed cannon. All of their Matism forms are Jet, Risky, Choice, and Bingo. Superpowers are dreams. All of their weapons are twin wheels. Legends. For those that conjure up enough strength, enough magical might, enough luck, will be given the Tyrannical Spirit's godness. Millions of lives he has claimed, except for the 39 legends of this world. When they felt the fuck no coming on, they just kept going on. On to the next sword, on to the next strategy, on to the next war, on to the next victory, on to a higher, oh my goodness. They fought so hard against human nature to ideally force humans to choose peace over hatred. That's how they created the ceremony of rebirth, taking away everything they used to know so they can simply not reclaim it. Started chain reaction after chain reaction of ultimate peace crusaders. Even though the number is small, the way they love thyself, the way they love everyone else, couldn't survive if they weren't overpowered catalysts of everything and anything. Legends 7th, Zigmonto and Javantra, a king and a queen. Their nations were the furthest from each other during their generation. Hardly any communication between them was the epitome of miscommunication, until the Tyrannical Spirit tried his coup d'etat from their first time finally meeting on, proved his misjudgment of when to strike. The world war of that time was prevented because their individual intuition kept most of the world leaders' heads from being rolled. So innovative with reading human nature, you would think they were already legends. Zigmonto, superpower is sorcery. Categories are dark, psychic, earth, and behemoth. Weapon of choice, barbarian X. Javantra, superpower is X hammerhead. Weapon of choice, twin yo-yos. Legends 6th, the House of Reve ladies. The House of Reve was an orphanage for girls. In the current day and age, it still exists as a beacon of legendariness. At that time, the headmasters felt so lucky. The potential of each lady would make them tear up with joy on a daily basis. Their parents were warlords, slain, didn't know any of them. Without skipping a beat, all of them wanted to be warlords too. The protective kind, hearts made of gold, capitalized the art of harnessing, voicing, unyielding, rallying, and understanding, making them living proof that stranger danger is a myth. Amanda Lay, superpower is light. Victoria Monet, superpower is astronomy. Elysian Ati, superpower is shadow. No Sania, superpower is astronomy. Onami Fade, superpower is vegetation. And all of them use sword and shield as weapons. Legends 5th, Raveno and Gemetto, or perhaps the least likely to set it off. Diplomatic minds make it so they can negotiate a better world for any nation. But because of the world they were brought into, they had no choice but to learn how to fight. Otherwise, they'll be the ones on their knees, and not in a good way. If it wasn't for their ways of figuring out perfect loyalty, both of their heads would have rolled a couple of decades before being crowned. The unity they could develop between communities turned both of them into kings. The way they acquired world domination was a bullet to the Tyrannical Spirit's heart. Talking to people nice is a quality he won't develop. Raveno, superpower is shark of astronomy. Weapon of choice, twin claws. Gemetto, superpower is afterlife. Weapon of choice, scimitar. Legends 4th, we're hungry. Consists of 4 individuals that found each other through world traveling. Mighty individually, free agents they were, but love at first sight dealt with their magical might. Then their magical might led them to magical weapons. A cache of mage weapons could be found at any given time, but a morph spear is a god weapon. Whatever you think it will turn into. Not a single confrontation was ready for them, not even the Tyrannical Spirit. Nacho, the bull of crystallization. Categories, Heremite, Diamond, and Emerald. Wagashi, superpower is Death Swan. Lasagna, superpower is Ladybug of Explosion. Some other food item, aka Sophie, superpower, Dalmatian Craft. All of them wield morph spears. Legends 3rd, Ioceras and Zavanto were separated at birth. There's a picture of a war-torn world. Their parents thought it would be best if they split up. They did, but could never find each other again. They didn't stop them from coronating their daughters into Coven Intali, a coven built on all primary elements with a totem that's a tree of magic. That eventually reconnected the sisters, but when they physically reconnected, they were ticking time bombs against the Tyrannical Spirit. Ioceras, superpower is hexenry. Categories are ice, light, electricity, and Pegasus. Zavanto, superpower is hexenry. Categories of fire, dark, earth, and Pegasus. Both of them wield spears. Legends 2nd were both obsessed with vergesse and sacrifice, just like any other citizen of this world. Made everyone want to become a god. Made everyone want to whoop the Tyrannical Spirit's ass again. This generation was swarming with super beings over and over again in preparation that the sky would turn black again. Happy to eliminate monsters, happy to execute the inhumane, all for the love of actual peace. Facing certain death never put fear in their heart. It was the trend Vergesse has always wanted. Hazum Bazaki, superpower is charm, and that's metal. All, weapon of choice, twin Nadachis. Zatuoshi, superpower is 9 tails of weather. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. Legends first, Vergesse used to think that no girl got what they wanted, all because one guy incentivized he'll always be number one, an abyss of a world order that needed to be broken. But how? Well, everyone understands, if you can't become powerful, you'll always be nothing. Why exist? Why continue to exist? Turned into, I'm too beautiful to be stressed. These people are too beautiful for all this slaying. This isn't what we want. My dream, to make the world the way it better be. All day, every day, sacrifice was right there with her to say fuck no and fuck yeah, according to whichever situation. His Hydra forms always made sure she had a head up on the war fields. It took her ages to get to the Tyrannical Spirit. Took her ages to be the first ever to behead him. To make her even more superior, she drunk blood leaking from his dome. immediately after beheading him, immediately changing the course of humanity for the better. Vergesse, superpower is heaven versus hell. Weapon of choice, sword and shield. Sacrifice, superpower is shadow hydra of death. Weapon of choice, double sword. And that'll conclude the folklore pieces of story number 14, Dream of Making. TPB out. Mwah.